What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm doing a Master Duel Cubic deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an awesome deck to be able to play in Master Duel because you can summon out one of the most powerful boss monsters in the entire game, Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, which is a OTK machine. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Crimson Nova. This card is a great 3-of in the deck. It's just super powerful and really easy to summon. This card can be special summoned from your hand by revealing any 3 other cubic cards in your hand with different names, making it super easy to be able to summon to your side of the field. It also has the effect that it's unaffected by other monsters' activated effects whose original attack is 3,000 or less. And when this card attacks an opponent's monster and destroys it by battle, you can activate this effect that this card can make a second attack in a row, making it really easy to OTK the opponent. Also, during the end phase, each player takes 3,000 points of damage, making it easy to close out games. This card is really awesome in the deck, and with cards like Cubic Wave, being able to double this card's attack points, it makes it really easy to OTK the opponent. I then played 3 copies of Duza. Duza is a really good normal summon in the deck that's basically a walking Foolish Burial. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send any cubic card from your deck to the graveyard, which is usually going to be your copy of your Cubic Karma, so you can get an additional search. But this card has a lot of targets in the deck to make it a really good normal summon. We then play 3 copies of Yugioh. Yugioh is a really good defensive card in the deck that has the ability it cannot be destroyed by battle, which is really good to throw this card into defense position and kind of wait it out against your opponent until you get to your copy of Crimson Nova to be able to OTK. But this card also has a really good effect that at the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, you can place this card in your spell and trap card zone as a continuous spell card. And if you do, you place a cubic counter on an opponent's monster. And monsters with cubic counters cannot attack and also have their effects negated. And if this card is treated as a continuous spell card by its effect, or by this effect, during your main phase, you can special summon this card from your spell and trap card zone to your side of the field, which is a great effect just to be able to negate an opponent's monster's effect, while also having an extremely defensive card in this OTK deck. I then play a single copy of Buster Gunneal. Buster Gunneal is in here for the name, and it's a really good 1-up. I then play a single copy of the Cubic King. Cubic King is a really good card in the deck, and we actually do summon this card, unlike the copy of Buster Gunneal. But this card has the ability it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must first be special summoned from your hand by sending a cubic monster that you control to the graveyard. And if this card is summoned this way, it gains 800 attack, and if this card is special summoned from your hand, you do 800 points of burn damage to your opponent, making it easier to OTK your opponent. We then play 3 copies of Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is a really good 3-of in the deck to basically summon out your copy of Duza directly from your deck, because when this card is faceable on the field, it's changed to defense position, and if this card is on the field, you can discard a spell card from your hand to special summon a level 4 monster from your deck, which is going to be always your copy of Duza that you're going to put on your side of the field, so you can use it as a Foolish Burial, which is really good while also being able to link summon or even XZ summon in some really powerful rank 4s. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Cubic Dorma. This card is a really good 1-of in the deck, but you only really need a single copy of this card. It has a great effect that you take no battle damage from attacks involving your cubic monsters, which is super handy with cards like Yugioh having 0 attack and 0 defense. But this card also has a really good effect that you can activate one of these effects per turn, that you can send a cubic card from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, draw a card, or you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target a cubic monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, which is really good to be able to recover cards like Crimson Nova. We then play 3 copies of Cubic Karma. Cubic Karma is insanely powerful and has one really powerful effect that if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card to be able to add a cubic monster from your deck to your hand, essentially being the Rhoda of the deck from the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of Cubic Wave. This card is really good combo with your copy of Crimson Nova because it has the ability to target a cubic monster that you control, and one face-up monster that your opponent controls, and the attack of your monster becomes doubled, and the attack of the opponent's monster is halved, which is really awesome to just help you OTK the opponent to make your copy of Crimson Nova go all the way up to 6,000 attack points. We then play 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial Goods is really good in this deck to be able to send your copy of Cubic Karma to the graveyard, but also be able to send your copy of Unification of the Cubic Lords, which is really good to be able to send either of those cards to the graveyard to get their maximum effects. We then play 3 copies of Reasoning. Reasoning is so good in this deck to be able to get you a level 4 on your side of the field. If your opponent calls level 4, you're going to hit a copy of Vjom usually to get a level 1 on your side of the field, but if you hit a copy of a level 4 and they call 1, you're going to get a copy of either Duza or your copy of Summoner Monk. If they do call the level right, it's totally fine because basically we're using this card to be able to get your copies of Cubic Karma or Unification into the graveyard, but this card usually equals a free special summon, which is why we play this card as a 3 of. And currently, this card is still at 3 in Master Duel. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is so good in this deck to be able to just dig into the deck and get some additional cards so we can go in for more OTK potential. But this card is really, really good in the deck because we don't go into the extra deck all that often. We then play 3 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is crazy powerful in this deck just to be able to board wipe your opponent of either all their attack position monsters or all of their back row so we can go in for an OTK. But this card is really, really good in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Forbidden Droplets. Droplets is just so good in the deck to be able to negate opponents' cards while also sending cards from our hand to the graveyard like our copies of Cubic Karma so we can get additional searches. This card is super good in the deck and a definite 3 of in this build. It also halves the attack of monsters that you target with this card, which is really crazy. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Cubic Ascension. Cubic Ascension is a really good 1-of in the deck. I really like this card as a 1-of. I don't feel like you need any more than a single copy of this card. And it has a great effect that when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon a Vjom from your deck. And if you do, change the attack target to it. Then perform damage calculation. If your opponent's life points are 2,000 or higher than yours, then you manage this card from your graveyard to special summon a Vjom from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then, if only your opponent controls a monster when this card was activated, you can special summon 2 more Vjoms, which is really cool, to instantly get you 3 copies of Vjom on the field. We then play 3 copies of Unification. Unification is a really good 3-of in the deck that is just an awesome card overall, that it has a really good graveyard effect. It is a fusion trap card that we're never going to fusion summon usually in this deck, but except on rare occasions. But this card is a great graveyard effect that you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 level 4 lower cubic monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, and if you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects this turn. And the way that you actually are able to do that is if a face-up cubic monster is destroyed by battle or leaves the field by any reason, which is really cool to just be able to banish this card if you link summon into a copy of your Duza that gives you a Foolish Burial to then send Cubic Karma to the graveyard and then banish that card to be able to search out Crimson Nova. This card is a really awesome card in this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're playing a single copy of Crimson Nova Trinity, the Dark Cubic Lord. This card comes out every so often in this deck. This card is insanely powerful and a crazy awesome boss monster that takes 3 copies of Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, to be able to make this card. It's very rare that you summon this card, but it's in here just in case you do. We then play 3 copies of Gustav Max, because our copies of our Crimson Nova are all level 10. So this card does 2,000 points of burn damage, which can help you OTK the opponent, and it's just a really good card overall, just to help you close out games. It also can stop the burn damage that you might take during the end phase if you're below 3,000 life points, because if you have 2 copies of Crimson Nova on the field, you can overlay both of them into this card and do 2,000 to the opponent instead of 3,000 to both. We then play 2 copies of Juggernaut Lieb. Lieb is a really good 2-of in the deck just to help us go in for game. It gets absolutely massive, and we can throw it on our top of our copy of Gustav Max. I then play a single copy of Baguska. Baguska is just really good to throw in Defense Solution on our side of the field to be able to wait out the opponent when we use our effect of Summoner Monk to put a copy of Duza on the field. We then play a single copy of number 60. Number 60 is really good because it has 3 awesome effects that we can either double the attack of a monster, draw 2 and discard 1, or we get to use this card as a Monster Reborn, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Assembled Nightingale, just in case we can put 2 copies of Vjom on the field. We can make this card, which is really nice. 1 copy of Downer Magician, because we can make this on top of our copy of Assembled Nightingale. And then just a single copy of Zeus, because Zeus is currently at 1 in Master Duel. But Zeus is really good in this deck to be able to board wipe the field just in case you need to. I then play 2 copies of Pentastag. Pentastag is really good because the monster that it points to can do piercing damage, and that's pretty crazy on your copy of your Crimson Nova. We then play a single copy of Underclock Taker. Underclock Taker is really good because once per turn you can target 1 face-up monster this card points to, and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, and the opponent's target loses attack equal to target attack monsters that this card pointed to, which is pretty good just to help you OTK the opponent and drop an opponent's monster's attack points way down. We then play a single copy of Relinquished Anima, because being able to take an opponent's monster is really good, and this card is just really good overall because we already have really defensive cards, so I didn't want to play Link Rebo in this deck because we have copies of Vjom that we can throw in Defense Solution, but this card is really good if your opponent plays the monster in the wrong zone, or gives you a Link Arrow that you can put this card on the field and take the opponent's monster. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is really fun to be able to play, because if you guys have never played Cubic before, it's just really awesome to be able to OTK our opponent with our copies of Crimson Nova, and it's really easy to pull off by just summoning out Crimson Nova, activating Cubic Wave, and then going in for game. So, anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come for our notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.